Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description. This whole story began one sunny day. I had to go to a military training ground with my best friend Suigetsu as an internship from the academy. For 3 years now, my fair-haired friend and I have been studying at the military academy to become doctors. By the way, our academy is exclusively intended for Omegas. Forgot to introduce, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I am 20 years old and I am an Omega, although my character can easily be mistaken for an Alpha. I have light hair, which always sticks out in different directions no matter how hard I try to style it. Blue eyes, full lips, a toothy smile, dark fluffy eyelashes, tan skin and a fit physique. I also have a tattoo on my face in the form of 3 stripes on each cheek. At first, my parents were indignant and swore at the tattoo, because it is for life, but after some time they got used to it, and even said that this tattoo reminds them of a fox's whiskers. I grew up in a loving family all my life and did not deny myself anything. Many of my friends were surprised by my lifestyle. At the age of 16, I got a job at my parents' hospital, and since I did not have a higher education and was still a schoolboy, they allowed me to try myself as a nurse. At first, it was difficult to combine work and school, but over time I got used to it and became one of the best employees. At first, my mother Kushina tried to dissuade me from the idea of working and was ready to give me money for my needs, but I then firmly decided for myself that it was time to start providing for myself independently. Yes, the salary was small, but this did not scare me, because I honestly earned this money with my labor. Minato, my father and also the head of the Tokyo hospital, also did not understand my desire to work in the hospital, especially when the final exams at school were just around the corner. Having decided that my will and desire could not be broken, he gave in and allowed me to continue working. I liked working as a nurse in the hospital and helping sick people and my parents. But I was even more delighted when a wounded soldier was brought to the hospital. The man was performing a secret operation and was wounded. It was decided to take him to the nearest hospital, and it turned out to be ours. The soldier was covered in blood, which is why the nurse working with me immediately fainted. As a person who had seen a lot, I decided to help here. At first, everyone looked at me skeptically, because where did you see a 16-year-old teenager being a nurse? But only after the words of my father and my mentor Irika, they allowed me to help. As it turned out, the victim had a bullet wound in the liver area, as well as multiple knife wounds. It was decided to send my father to the operating room as one of the country's highly qualified surgeons and a military doctor. He was a man of about 35 with a mask covering half his face. His dark brown eyes looked at me piercingly, but at the same time warmly. The man was dressed in a dark green spotted uniform. On his chest was a black bulletproof vest. For convenience, he quickly took it off, put on a blue robe, washed his hands with disinfectant, and put on gloves. The operation lasted more than 8 hours, during which I managed to get tired, but I didn't show it. Then my new friend praised me and ruffled my hair, saying that I would make an excellent military doctor. My father asked me not to clutter my brain with such things, but it was too late. I decided for myself that I wanted to become a military doctor, and I really liked the uniform. Then I finished school and entered a military academy for Omegas, where I met my friend Suigetsu. Suigetsu Hozuki was an Omega, just like me. He was 21 years old. His light ash blonde hair was always tied in a ponytail, his brown eyes were lined with black pencil, and there was a permanent smirk on his lips. Pale skin, a slender build, all this attracted the gaze of alphas, and my friend masterfully took advantage of this, receiving gifts from his admirers. Many wanted to be with him or just spend one night, but he, like me, was not ready to lie down under every cute alpha male. If Suigetsu was looking for that one, his true one, then I simply did not care about alphas. No, I had relationships, but they never went to bed. But somehow I've gone off topic. In the summer of my 3rd year, the academy sent its best students to a military training ground as practice. Out of 40 people, only 12 were honored, including Suigetsu and me. And so, when all the documents were prepared and our things were packed, we were supposed to be taken to the training ground by bus. And everything would have been fine if that day I hadn't developed a high fever and hadn't had to stay at the academy under the supervision of the attending physician. A whole month at the training ground, a whole month of practice and new knowledge. No matter how much I tried to go with everyone else and prove that I was okay after the injections and pills, Mrs. Kurinai still forbade me to leave the infirmary. The next day, after a good rest and examination, Kurinai gave her permission to undergo practical training at the military training ground. And when I was ready to get into the car and drive away to meet new adventures, she asked me to be careful and very attentive. It just so happened that Alphas serve at the training ground, and Omegas work either as doctors or psychologists. Both quickly end up on maternity leave. There are even rumors that the military make bets among themselves on who will be the first to mark a new Omega and soon make him a child. But I am different from all my classmates, who for the most part became military doctors only for the sake of a military husband. After all, it is so cool to be a military doctor, but it is even cooler to have a military husband, and it does not matter that most Alphas cheat on their pregnant spouses during service. Everyone knows perfectly well and still goes. What idiots people are. We got to the training ground in 5 hours, which is pretty fast. Sir Jetsu said it took them about 9 hours. Traffic jams take hours out of our already worthless lives. It was deep night when Comrade Sergeant brought me to the barracks for military doctors and helped me carry my things. Having handed me over to the Commander-in-Chief, who turned out to be Kakashi-sensei, the sergeant saluted, bowed and left. Hataki immediately embraced me with all the warmth and fatherly love that had appeared in him after the birth of his son Yoko. Incidentally, the Alpha's Omega turned out to be none other than Irika-sensei, my mentor at the hospital, and surprisingly, these two were true. After a warm greeting, Kakashi picked up my bags and headed to one of the bedrooms. Each bedroom housed 6 people. 3 bunk beds stand near one of the walls. 1 medium-sized table with 3 chairs near it. 3 nightstands, on which there is already junk. A medium-sized closet, in which, apparently, the things of the residents are kept. Little furniture, but a lot of space. Another wardrobe and a couple more nightstands should be delivered tomorrow, Kakashi whispered quietly, putting the bags on the floor. That's your bed, he continued, pointing to the second tier. Wake up at 6 in the morning. Don't oversleep and have a good night. Thank you, I replied, pulling off my denim jacket and black t-shirt. Deciding that I could unpack my things tomorrow, I quickly pulled off the rest of my things and climbed up to my bunk. As it turned out, my bedmate was Sujetsu. As soon as my head hit the pillow and my eyes closed, I instantly fell asleep. In the morning I woke up from a loud knock on our bedroom door, and then from the loud voice of the Commander-in-Chief. Opening one eye and turning towards the door, I saw a tall, dark-haired man with a cigarette in his teeth. He didn't look particularly friendly at first glance, and at second glance either, especially when he quickly walked up to one of the beds and pushed the guy who hadn't woken up off it. Omega screamed and woke up abruptly from the close acquaintance with the floor, and he was about to get indignant when he met the man's dark eyes. Asuma-sensei, I'm sorry, the Omega said, abruptly getting up from the floor. Everyone in the room, including me, rushed to join the Omega. For the newcomer, looking straight at me. I am Colonel Sarutobi Asuma. I am your main supervisor during the internship, and in case of any problems or questions, please contact me directly. Is everything clear? Yes, sir, I answered and smiled. You have 20 minutes to get ready and have breakfast, and then we'll go to the training ground itself, where you'll undergo another, no less important briefing. Yes, sir, Comrade Colonel, the Omegas answered in chorus. Time has passed, and the Alpha disappeared behind the door. Naruto, you've arrived. You can't imagine how happy I am to see you, and yesterday I met such a handsome Alpha and it seems to me that we have a connection, Sujetsu said, hugging me, while the other guys were tidying up their beds and getting dressed. I'm glad to hear that, Sway, was all he could answer, after which, moving away from the guy, he began to dress in the military uniform that they gave us. In 7 minutes I timed it, everyone was ready. My classmates smiled at the sight of me and wished me a good practice, after which everyone, divided into subgroups, went to breakfast. For breakfast we had oatmeal with a couple of slices of bread and tea. Surprisingly, the porridge was quite edible, and I would say, somewhat tasty. Having sorted out the food and discussed the rules of being on the training ground, we, in pairs, headed after Asuma. The whole way, the Omegas were discussing something and laughing loudly, and when the military alphas appeared in their field of vision, they began to behave even more stupidly. They laughed even louder, waved at the alphas, made eyes and wiggled their butts invitingly. From the outside, it looked pathetic and vulgar, and I was also very ashamed for everyone, because we didn't come here to start a relationship. I certainly didn't, but to gain experience and later become highly professional military doctors. And where are the parents of these Omegas looking? We were brought to a small house and asked to line up. There were also more military men on both sides, and as often happens, they started getting to know us and showering us with compliments. Many blushed and smiled sweetly at the alphas, and then even gave their phone numbers. Suigetsu was no exception. He, like everyone else, was sweetly embarrassed and communicated, but unlike the other Omegas, he kept his distance. He did not let the alphas lay a finger on him. A couple of empty-headed males also tried to hit on me, but were stopped by the menacing look of one of the soldiers. 10 minutes later, a fair-haired man came out to us. As it turned out later, it was the Army Marshal, Hiruzen Saratobi. The man looked about 60 years old. He was dressed in a military uniform, like everyone else, only the shoulder straps were different. His look and posture spoke of his high status in the army, as well as his self-confidence. I wish I could feel as confident in front of a large crowd of people. His speech was restrained, clear, and to the point. All the military, including the Omegas, listened attentively, afraid to miss the information they needed. When the instructions and speech were over, all the military were dismissed, giving the opportunity to walk around the training ground for an hour. The Omegas immediately went for a walk with the Alphas, laughing cheerfully, while Suigetsu dragged me to a place known only to him. We stopped near one of the tanks, near which stood 2 tall Alphas. One of them was a tall brunette with dark brown eyes. His coal-black hair was comically sticking out at the back of his head, and his long bangs fell on both sides of his face. Pale skin and an athletic figure that was visible even through his military uniform. When the guy saw us, he grinned, but did not take a step towards us. The second Alpha was a tall, ash-haired young man with brown eyes. His hair was tied in a ponytail, and a happy smile played on his face. Slightly pale skin, a fit physique. In general, an ordinary average Alpha, of which there were more than enough at every step. I was hardly surprised when my friend walked straight towards the brunette. He let go of my hand for a moment, and hugged this Alpha. "Meet," smiled Suigetsu, stepping away. "This is my best friend Uzumaki Naruto," looking at me. "And this is Uchiha Sasuke." "Nice to meet you," Sasuke and I said at the same time. "And this is Kabuto," Suigetsu said, as if remembering the existence of another military man, leading the ash-haired man to us. "Naruto." I smiled, extending my hand for a handshake. "Nice to meet you." While Suigetsu was openly flirting with Uchiha, I decided to climb on the tank. Well, what? I didn't want to talk to those two, especially Sasuke. He's kind of strange, and he doesn't seem reliable and especially not in love with my friend, but I'll say that later, alone. I have always liked tanks, because they are so huge, powerful, and simply amazing. They contain a huge force that can protect our country at any moment. I have seen tanks on TV many times, but I have never seen them so close or even climbed on them. Ideally, I would like to see and study the tank from the inside, but the hatches were closed, and it was all unsafe. While Suigetsu was talking to the Alpha, I wanted to take a couple of photos on my phone, and since Kabuto was not doing anything at the time, this important task was assigned to him. The Alpha snapped everything in a row, arguing that this way I would clearly find something worthwhile. Deciding not to argue with him, I simply gave in to my emotions. When it was time to wrap up and head back to headquarters, as I mentally nicknamed that little house, I stepped on a hatch. I realized I was flying off the tank, and all I could do at that moment was close my eyes and brace myself for the blow that never came. Instead, I felt myself in someone's warm embrace. Sasuke, and it was him. The man who had saved me from a close encounter with the asphalt. But even so, I wasn't ready to give him my blessing or wish him luck in his relationship with my best friend. "Naruto, are you okay?" Suigetsu asked worriedly. What will happen to me? I laughed, moving away from Uchiha's hands. If it weren't for Sasuke, you would have definitely either died or broken something. Calm down, everything is fine now. She ruffled his hair. It's time for us to go, Sui said as we ran towards our people. We were among the first to arrive at the headquarters. The rest were only reluctantly pulling themselves up. I took a more comfortable position for myself, that is, in the first rows. Standing opposite the commanders-in-chief, there is a chance to be protected from the naughty little hands of the alphas, who are just itching to pinch and grope the Omega's asses. Asuma, Kakashi and some other strange man with a garden pot haircut and dressed in all green came out to speak. This color doesn't suit him, and the hairstyle is unfortunate. My name is Mado Guy and I am a colonel of the military unit, Shadow. As you all know, medical students from the military academy will be at our training ground for a month. After consulting with our colleagues, we came to the conclusion that it would be a good idea to invite the 2 best students to serve in our special unit upon completion of their industrial training, Comrade Colonel said with a broad smile. May the power of youth help you. Then he shouted and thereby spoiled all the positive attitude towards him. The best students will be those who successfully complete this practice and pass the final exam at the end, Kakashi hastened to add to the words of his colleague. As the person responsible for training military doctors, I will personally select the best students and recommend them for service. But I warn you right away, do not expect any concessions since you are Omegas. This is the army and the order is the same for everyone. Not satisfied? We do not keep you here and will even show you the way. Any questions? But what about the heat? Asked one of the Omegas, raising his hand. For such cases, we have the latest medications that help Omegas cope with difficult days for you as painlessly and quickly as possible. We also do not accept attitudes on the training ground. Outside the military unit, do whatever you want, but on the territory, please follow the established rules. As soon as you violate them, you are immediately kicked out of the service and then your career is ruined. At work, people without a military ID and especially without an education are not valued, Asuma said. And now everything in its place. There is a lot of work. Yes, sir, the soldiers said in unison, after which they turned 180 degrees and left. Hatake Kakashi quickly approached us along with Might Guy. We were introduced to each other once more and headed towards the forest, where about 10 soldiers were already waiting for us. They had red bandages tied to their arms, indicating that they were medics. There were stretchers and numerous backpacks lying on the ground, obviously filled with medicine and whatever we might need in the forest. Today we will be undergoing first aid in the forest, said one of the medics, stepping forward. We already understood that, laughed one of our Omegas, for which he received a very displeased look from both the commander-in-chief and everyone else. It's one thing to throw yourself into the arms of alphas, and another thing to argue and show disrespect to those higher in rank, especially when you were chosen as one of 12 people. Most likely, those who remained in the academy were much more worthy than this guy and had more brains. It's a shame. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't immediately notice how I was left alone with Kakashi-sensei and Suigetsu. I hope you two aren't in heat this month and I don't have to send you to the infirmary, the alpha began to say, for some reason looking more at me than at my friend. As if I was the one hanging on the alphas. You two are 2 of the smartest Omegas I've ever met in my life and I don't want to lose you. How sweet, Kakashi-sensei. I patted the man on the shoulder in a friendly manner and, turning around 180 degrees, headed after the rest of the group. I'll keep an eye on him, Suigetsu said. Who will look after you? The alpha asked himself under his breath before following us. After about 7 minutes, we were finally able to catch up with our group. It was located near a small and rather cozy lake, which was hidden from prying eyes. Silence and calm enveloped my body while we all set up tents and helped our medics lay out medical supplies. In one tent, it was agreed to set up a point of examination and provision of medical assistance, and in the other, a couple of folding beds were placed in case of seriously wounded. I volunteered to examine the sick, but Kakashi-sensei decided to send me to provide emergency assistance, since my skills and knowledge are higher than the others. Suigetsu was sent to help me, which I was incredibly happy about. The rest were divided between examining and helping the seriously ill. No one was indignant or somehow argued with the decision of their elders, since everyone understood the level of their knowledge perfectly well. Before each of you starts performing your duties, you should thoroughly learn the main rules of being in the forest. The first and most important rule: if you are not confident in your abilities and do not know exactly how to help the patient, then you should not even try. It is better to call for help someone who, in your opinion, can cope with the problem. Second, if a wounded alpha falls into your hands, a very cute alpha, you do not start flirting with him and asking about his marital status. First of all, you are military doctors, so you must act impartially. Third, in the event of an unexpected estrus, we do not panic and certainly do not look for an alpha. You approach Colonel Kakashi and report the problem that has arisen, after which you are sent to the medical unit. And lastly, you must show everything you are capable of. Your future career, and perhaps even your life, depends on it. And now everyone disperse. As soon as it was all over and Comrade Ibito-san let us go look around, most of the Omegas immediately ran into the forest. The rest, including me and Suigetsu, decided to stay in the camp and help with the distribution of medicines. Everyone knew how to provide first aid and had studied it at the academy. But no one had yet practiced it on a real person, except for me. After all, I worked in a hospital, so for me, providing assistance was not something difficult or new. For some reason, I had no doubt that this practice would be needed in the near future. Naruto-kun, could you quickly run to the headquarters where we came from and bring the blue folder with the documents? I forgot it on the table, smiled the comrade senior lieutenant, entering the first tent. Okay. He quickly agreed and, warning Kakashi of his departure, ran. I never had problems remembering the terrain and the road, so in less than 3 minutes I was on the road that led straight to the headquarters. Deciding that the documents could wait, I walked slowly, breathing fresh air in the direction I needed. I liked the landscape, the air and the sky here. Thinking about the weather, I did not notice how I began to approach the tanks with the military. The closer I got to Kabuto's tank, the more I frowned. Near the military equipment stood the invariable Uchiha Sasuke and chatted pleasantly with a pink-haired girl. She, in turn, shifted from foot to foot and laughed cheerfully, occasionally twirling her hair on her clearly manicured fingers. Without thinking twice, I took my mobile phone out of my pocket and took a couple of pictures for Suigetsu. Let him know that this alpha cable flirts with everything that moves. He doesn't deserve such a sweet, open and the best Omega like Suigetsu. Putting the phone back in my pocket, I casually walked up to the black-haired boy and pushed the girl aside. I should have said a few words to him before Suigetsu found out about his adventures. I imagined how much pain he would feel, but it's okay, I'm always here and I can help him. I see that before Suigetsu had even disappeared from sight, you were already in full swing picking up new Omegas, I said without beating around the bush, looking closely into his dark brown eyes. Why not? This alpha answers me with a grin, leaning slightly towards my face. If you ever come near my friend again, I promise to rip your balls off and shove them up your ass. You have no idea how much you piss me off right now. Why, I can imagine, and again this grin that makes the heart speed up its rhythm. What's wrong with me? Have I caught a cold? In general, I warned you. And with my head held high, I headed to headquarters. At the headquarters I was met by 10 pairs of surprised eyes. Someone was eating, someone was discussing the upcoming work, and someone was sleeping. I didn't really want to interrupt someone and ask about the folder with documents, but I felt like I wouldn't be able to find it in this mess. And they call themselves military, even in my room there is less of a mess. Hello, might guy, I greeted the colonel of the Shadow Squad. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I have come to pick up a folder with documents for the senior lieutenant from the medical squad. Hello, the man smiled. Ray sent you. And I've heard about you, Naruto, from Kabushima Hospital. I looked at the man in surprise and was about to ask the question that interested me, when Mato continued. In a good way. The soldier you saved back then is named Kiba Inuzuka and he is a member of my squad. He is very grateful for your help, and he would not mind thanking you personally. Is he here? Of course, where else would he be? The colonel smiled. He'll be here in about 5 minutes. Will you wait? What about the documents? The prospect of talking to the fearless soldier who had voluntarily embarked on the path of the Tokyo Special Forces was very tempting, so I nodded in agreement. My guy handed me Rei's documents, and then we went outside to get some fresh air. While we waited for Kiba, my heart was pounding, because I was one of those who saved his life and ultimately saved him. Alpha, noticing my state, placed his palms on my shoulders encouragingly and smiled. "The power of youth is so wonderful," he told me then. "You know, Naruto, I see potential in you, and that's why I want to offer you a place in our squad. Kakashi-sensei and Kiba will definitely agree to my offer. I understand that we don't know each other well enough yet, and I don't really know all your capabilities, but thanks to the stories of my subordinate and best friend Kakashi, I'm ready to take you right away. Don't worry, I'll give you time to think." The brunette smiled and ruffled my hair, making me blush deeply and smile. The offer was very tempting and I didn't want to miss it, but the thought that I would be always on the road, participating in dangerous missions and seeing little of my family scared me. If my father understood and supported me, then my mother would be 100% against it, because I was her only child and God forbid something happened to me. All mothers are like that, you know that. For a mother, her own child is the best thing that could happen in her life and the most valuable, expensive treasure that she would never be ready to part with. God, but why is everything so complicated in my life? "Good health, Comrade Colonel," said the tall, brown-eyed, brown-haired man, saluting his commander-in-chief. "At ease," he replied. "Naruto-kun, it's good to see you," the Alpha greeted him, scratching the back of his head and extended his hand for a handshake. "My name is Inuzuka Kiba. I'm the wounded Alpha you saved in the hospital." "Hello," shaking his hand. "I remember you. Naruto should take this folder," Mato said, pointing to the documents in my hands. "To Rei. Could you accompany him, and at the same time you can stay there and ask if they need help. I think no one will be against it, and you will be able to talk to Naruto. But what about our new mission in the city? I don't think Garakun and Lee-kun can handle it alone," Inuzuka asked, turning to the man. "Mission? I wonder what kind of mission it is that 3 adult alphas can't handle. Although if it's an elite and secret squad, then the mission won't be easy. I'd like to participate with them, but my knowledge and practical skills are not yet sufficient." "Take Naruto with you," Guy said calmly, smiling. "What an alpha! Why the hell is he just saying that? It's like he's discussing the weather, by God. But I like this proposal, even though I haven't shown it. Tell Kakashi that Naruto is now a member of our squad and that he no longer needs to undergo training from the academy." "But?" I wanted to be indignant, but Mato interrupted me again. "Forgive us for not giving you the right to choose and time to think, but I think you yourself understand perfectly well that this is an excellent chance to become one of the best military doctors. We will sign the documents about your new stay here and rank today. From now on, you are Lieutenant Uzumaki Naruto. Now go." "Yes, sir," Kiba replied, taking my hand and leading me away from the headquarters. When the headquarters disappeared from our sight, Kiba finally let go of my hand, and we headed towards the medic's camp in silence. I didn't want to say anything at all, and what was there to say when you were simply presented with a fait accompli? Now I'm not just a third-year student at the Military Doctors Academy for Omegas, but a lieutenant in the special squad, Shadow. And when will my life stop being so unpredictable and become ordinary like all ordinary people's? Although no, it makes life more fun and interesting. Kiba walks silently, his hands in his pants pockets and nervously biting his lips. His whole gait suggests that he is very nervous and worried about the whole situation, but I didn't know how to tell him that he is not to blame and that I don't mind becoming one of them. When the image of Uchiha appeared on the horizon, I bit my lip and unconsciously clenched my fists. I was still infuriated by this alpha, who did not let a single Omega pass in front of him. I always knew that in our world there were no decent alphas left, ready to do everything for one Omega. And all this crap concerning the truth of couples is nothing more than a children's fairy tale. No, my parents were true and everything happened for them like in a fairy tale. First courtship, romantic dates under the moon, a marriage proposal, and then my birth. And even after so many years, it seems to me that their love has become only stronger than before. I wish I could do the same. Kiba, as if sensing my state, carefully and very tenderly took my hand and walked past the person I hated. It would seem, how can you hate a person for just one offense? But I could, and if I hate, then for a long time, and nothing will be able to correct my attitude towards this person. Thank you, Kiba whispered as we entered the forest. It's okay, I replied, crashing into the strong back of the Alpha's. What is it? I wanted to say that I owe you my life and that I will do everything to ensure that you remain safe on our upcoming mission. And although it is not as dangerous as all the previous ones, the risk of being wounded and killed is still high. Thank you for your honesty and for your support. Then I will protect you in turn. And after these words we continued our way. Kakashi came out to meet us together with Rei. Both Alphas looked at me and Kiba in surprise, and then their gaze stopped at our hands, which were clasped together all this time. Your documents, I said, letting go of the Alpha's hand and handing the folder to Rei. Thank you. Now go to Suigetsu. He was really worried about your absence, continued Kakashi. Comrade Lieutenant Colonel, may I address you? Kiba spoke up, causing me to stop and turn to face those present. I give permission. Colonel Madogai asked me to convey an important message to you. From now on, Uzumaki Naruto is awarded the rank of lieutenant, and he is listed in the Shadow Squad as a military doctor, the brown-haired man reported under two pairs of surprised eyes. Is that even possible? Rei asked, looking at his colleague. If Guy decided, then it's all right. The main thing is that Asuma, Itachi and Sarutobi agree with it, the Alpha answered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He slowly approached me and hugged me in a fatherly way, thereby rejoicing for me and wishing me luck in my new position and new responsibilities. I hugged the man and for a moment imagined my father in his place, who was also hugging me now and saying a few words of support. And yet I missed him. It's one thing not to see each other for a couple of days and at the same time to be an hour away from each other, and another, to be on the other side of Tokyo. Naruto, go ahead. Rei's voice brought me out of my thoughts and I apologized and ran. Anything else? Kiba asked Kakashi. Yes, scratching the back of his head. I was ordered to accompany Naruto on his way back to headquarters, but for now I'm helping you here. Let me remind you that most of the Omegas are in this camp, and if you lay a finger on anyone, I will immediately send you back to Guy. Yes, sir. When I entered the tent, I noticed Suigetsu cheerfully discussing something with a military Alpha I didn't know. They were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice me entering and sitting down next to my friend. Sway, I called my friend, which made him twitch nervously. Everything is fine, it's just me for now, laughter. God, Naruto, you really love to scare me. The Omega smiled and punched me on the shoulder. Where have you been for so long? I was starting to worry. I went to get documents for Rei. I didn't want to talk about the new appointment, and until the documents were signed, I didn't want to spread the word. Of course, it's bad to deceive a friend, and it's also bad to leave him in the dark, but what can you do? Especially knowing our main gossips, in an hour everyone will know about my new position and responsibilities, and I'm also 100% sure that they will definitely throw mud at me and make it look like I went under the main military leaders for a promotion. Not every recruit is enrolled in an elite squad, especially in Omega. Why are you so serious? What happened? Your guy is flirting with the Omega there. I blurted out without thinking, after which I swallowed nervously and looked at Suigetsu's reaction, hoping that he wouldn't hear, but luck was not on my side. And who is he or she? Getting up from the bench and putting his hands on his hips. I don't know, but I took a photo. I quickly found the necessary photo in my phone and handed it to Suigetsu. Why should I hide something that concerns Suigetsu? Let him know what kind of alpha cable this is. At least 5 minutes of silence passed, which made not only me nervous, but also the guy I didn't know. We sat with the alpha and waited for any kind of reaction from Suigetsu. And after another moment, Hozuki finally froze and, having returned my phone, bit his lip. Dog. Bastard. He lamented, pacing nervously from side to side. Who is he doing this to? The alpha asked me in my ear. Yes, there is one person here who definitely needs to get his face punched, I said, clenching my fists in anticipation of this action. What's your name? Konohamaru. I'm 16 years old. What are you doing here at such a young age? I ran away from home, and my old man said when I came to him, either go back home or go serve in the medic unit. And since I don't want to go back to my parents, I came here. Is it that serious? They want to marry me to the son of one of the officials. But I don't want that, that's why I ran away. That's brutal. I didn't think that this was still practiced anywhere, I answered, hugging my new friend and smiling. It's okay, everything will be fine. Naruto, tell me, why are alphas such bastards? They say one thing and then another, Suigetsu lamented, sitting down next to me, laying his head on my shoulder. I gently stroked my friend's head and Konohamaru's back while these two were thinking about something of their own. This young alpha was not like his relatives, no matter how rude and strange it sounded. Of course, I can't judge a person after knowing him for 20 minutes at most, but for some reason I wanted to trust this alpha, and the boy was in no hurry to paw either me or my friend. I don't know how long we sat in that position, but I didn't notice how I dozed off. I woke up from light stroking on my head and the smell of cinnamon. When my eyes could finally focus on the person sitting in front of me, I recognized Kiba in him. Inuzuka smiled, and when he noticed my awakening, he removed his hand. You dozed off, he explained. Where are Suigetsu and Konohamaru? Rubbing his eyes. Konohamaru put you on the couch, covered you with a hospital gown, and he and Suigetsu left. How long did I sleep? I sat up abruptly on the couch, which made my head spin a little, and I fell back. Maybe an hour. Kakashi said not to disturb you and let you get some sleep. Before our mission, sleep wouldn't hurt, especially for you, since you're our new military doctor and you'll have a lot of responsibility, Kiba said with a smile, getting up from his squatting position. Let's go to dinner, and then to headquarters. Tonight you'll be sleeping in the same barracks with our squad and your new family. So soon, the dream instantly passed, and I stood up again abruptly, and if it weren't for Kiba's hands, I would now be getting acquainted with the floor. Thank you. Having fixed my uniform and tousled my already shaggy hair, we went outside with the alpha. Several people were making a fire, several were preparing dinner, and the rest were just disappearing somewhere. Kakashi was sitting under one of the trees and reading a book, which was surprising, because it was not light enough to do that outside. Rei and Ibito were absent from the camp. Seeing me, Konohamaru immediately jumped up from his place and ran up to us. The young alpha was smiling, looking at us, which made Kiba a little embarrassed and step aside. This alpha is funny, but cute. Where is Suigetsu? I asked my question, once again looking around the area. He went with the Omegas to get some brushwood, the brown-haired man answered, after which he grabbed my hand and led me to the fire, where he sat me down on one of the stumps. It's warmer here, he hastened to add. Thank you. She ruffled his hair. You're very kind. I'm the alpha and I have to take care of you. The boy smiled, and then quickly kissed me on the cheek, and hurried to retreat towards Kakashi. The guy's no slouch, Kiba said, sitting down next to him. Everything okay? Yes, I whispered a moment later and buried my face in my knees. Naruto, I need your help, Suigetsu, who had returned, announced loudly throughout the camp. Noticing me near the fire, he apologized to Kakashi for his behavior and ran up to me. Hello again, cute alpha, he greeted Kiba. I won't disturb you, Inuzuka replied, giving way to my friend. Naruto, I asked Sasuke to write to you on Facebook. He promised to tell you everything he thinks about me. Why can't he tell you this to your face? Why should I be the third person? Because we kind of had a falling out, and you're my best friend. I really like him, the Omega said, making sad eyes. Please, plaintively. Okay, but only because you're my best friend and I only wish you well, he said, hugging him by the shoulders. You're the best. He kissed me loudly on the cheek. I slowly took out my mobile phone, turned on the internet, and began to wait for Alpha's message, which did not take long to arrive, and after about a minute and a half we began our conversation. Uchiha Sasuke, hello. Fox, hello. You promised to answer how you feel about my friend. Lies and evasive answers are not accepted. Uchiha Sasuke, you won't even ask how I'm doing? Did you tell your friend everything about that Omega? Fox, answered the question asked. Uchiha Sasuke, how rude. Fox, I will not become what I am. Let's return to my question. Uchiha Sasuke, okay. I like your friend, but I don't feel more than friendship towards him. And I'm not ready for a relationship right now, so you can tell him that. I like another Omega. Fox, the one who was today. The one you flirted with? Uchiha Sasuke, no, another one. Fox, I see. Why can't you just tell Suigetsu that you're not a couple and that you don't like him? Uchiha Sasuke, he doesn't listen to me or doesn't want to. I've already told him this directly, but he still won't calm down. He says he's ready to communicate, but I can see that he doesn't need simple friendship. He's the Omega who demands tenderness and love, and I'm not the person who can give it to him. Fox, how like him? Uchiha Sasuke, this is how I can get rid of him. I always thought that it was the Alpha who was supposed to pursue the Omega, but I never thought that it would be the other way around. I quickly scrolled through our correspondence with Sasuke and showed it to Suigetsu. My friend became sadder with each new message, but the determination to conquer this Alpha in his eyes never diminished. This determination sometimes appeared at the wrong time. It would be better if he was so eager to gain new knowledge and skills. And if I leave now, then this beloved idiot will definitely do stupid things that no one will be able to fix later. Kiba sat next to Kakashi our entire conversation and told him something, occasionally glancing at me and Suigetsu. I liked this Alpha from the first minutes in appearance, and now that we have talked a little, I have come to like him even more, now also in conversation. I would like to have an Alpha friend like him. It seems to me that I can rely on him, and he would be an excellent husband in my opinion. Suigetsu, I need to tell you something. What? I am now a lieutenant and have been transferred to the Shadow Squad. Today I have to move to their barracks. I see, the Omega answered, getting up from his seat. Well, I wish you luck, and I'm happy for you. Honestly. And he went to the other Omegas who had managed to return from the forest. There was no point in approaching him now, because he was offended at me and a little angry. I understood what he was feeling now, and in his place I would have done the same, but an unpleasant aftertaste was still present in my soul. I quickly went to the tent, took my phone charger and went to Kiba, who immediately stood up from the ground upon seeing me, saluted Kakashi, and came up. He didn't need to say anything, he understood everything from my eyes and Suigetsu's reaction. Your things are already in our barracks, Kiba said, breaking the silence. Okay, was all I could squeeze out. If there are any problems, feel free to contact me. You have my number. Take care of yourself. Yes, sir, I answered like a newly minted military man. And Kiba and I set off on a journey where a new page in my life awaits me. I was greeted in the barracks in a very friendly manner. The red-haired young man and the guy with the bowl cut, just like our Commander-in-Chief Might Guy, welcomed me with open arms, in the literal sense of the word. I didn't even have time to understand how I found myself in the tight embrace of Rock Lee. The name was suggested to me by Kiba, who had been standing a little further away from me all this time and smiling. Having let me go, the red-haired Alpha, a very nice one, by the way, Gaara, approached me. His embrace was different from his partner's. They were more gentle and careful, if you can call them that. For a moment it seemed to me that this man was simply afraid of breaking me, and it was flattering. There were also 3 more people in the team, one of whom was named Hyuga. His chestnut hair was tied in a high ponytail, and a dark green headband adorned his forehead. But it wasn't this that attracted me, it was his eyes. They were light gray, for a moment it even seemed that they were absolutely white. This Alpha didn't even deign to tear himself away from reading his book, and responded to my appearance with a smirk. The second person was Nara Shikamaru, a dark-haired youth whose hair was tied in a high ponytail, resembling a pineapple. He reluctantly got out of bed and came over to me, shook my hand, and wished me luck. Then he returned to his place, instantly falling asleep. In this barracks there was one large bedroom with 7 iron beds, standing opposite each other. Each of them had wooden nightstands, in which, as I understood, the military things were stored. Also near the door there was a large wardrobe, and in the middle of the bedroom there was a small iron table with 3 chairs next to it. As it turned out, my bed was located between the beds of Kiba and Gaara. Where's the third one? I asked Kiba as he helped me unpack my things and get settled. He's spending the night with his brother tonight, and you know, it's better for you not to run into him now. This guy is in a bad mood and he's taking his hatred out on everyone, he answers. Don't worry, you'll have time to get acquainted later. We'll have dinner here, I'll bring you some food. We'll leave early tomorrow, so if I were you, I'd get a good night's sleep and gather my strength. Kiba, what is this mission? I asked then, sitting down on the edge of the bed. We need to get into one of the city's brothels and record a conversation between two very important people for us. They have a meeting there tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the brown-haired man answered in a whisper not in his ear. I thought the military didn't do things like that. Isn't this the FSB's business? It was the FSB that asked us to obtain information. It's all strange, but that makes it all the more fun. Later, an hour later, Mike Guy came to see us. The man congratulated me once again on my new position, made a couple of comments about Lee's discipline and gave new instructions to the guys staying in the barracks tomorrow, and left. While I was taking a shower, Kiba went to the dining room and brought me some food. For dinner, there was rice with meat and green tea. Gara found a poppy seed bun somewhere, and kindly gave it to me. After dinner, Kiba, Gara, Lee and I once again discussed all the possible outcomes of our mission, as well as the plan of action, after which, having wished each other good night, we went to bed. In the morning we were woken up at 4 a.m, which made me really want to kill someone, preferably slowly and painfully. While my new teammates woke up quickly and were already standing next to their beds in full combat readiness in a couple of minutes, I just couldn't force myself to get up. 5 a.m. I can understand, but not 4. At that moment, I really wanted to go home or at least to Suigetsu, who didn't get up until 7. Lieutenant Naruto, get up quickly! Mike Guy said loudly. I immediately jumped up from my seat, but got tangled in the blanket and collapsed. Niji rolled his eyes and smirked. Shikamaru continued to sleep. Lee barely held back the laughter that was trying to escape, while Gara kindly helped me up. Now imagine this picture: 6 tall and well-built young men in military uniforms, each standing near his own bed and waiting for the boss's orders, while one of them stands in black boxers and dreams of falling through the ground. No, we are all men and physiologically similar to each other, but excuse me, I am not ready to stand in my underwear in front of my boss. It's embarrassing. Gara, Kiba, Lee and Naruto, today you are going to carry out an important mission. I hope that you will do everything in the best possible way and without problems. Guy began to speak. And yes, since Naruto is new to us, I ask you to keep an eye on him. That's all, rubbing the bridge of his nose tiredly. You have 20 minutes to get ready. The car is waiting near the barracks. In those 20 minutes, Gara, Kiba, and Lee had time to shower, have breakfast, and change into civilian clothes, while I only had time to shower and change into civilian clothes. I put on light jeans, a white t-shirt, and a light denim jacket. On my feet were black Nike Air Max sneakers. The rest of the squad, who weren't on missions today, undressed and lay down to finish sleeping. I envy them. You look great, Lee said as he sat down in the car, looking at my appearance. Thank you. It was about a 6-hour drive to our destination, and I planned to get at least a little sleep during that time. So without thinking twice, I laid my head on Kiba's shoulder and fell asleep instantly. The others followed my example, gathering strength before the mission. I woke up from a light touch on my shoulder. My brain stubbornly refused to wake up and somehow perceive the surrounding environment for a long time. I finally woke up only on the street, when a strong wind blew in my face. I stood leaning on Kiba and looked around, and when the dream passed, and my gaze became more meaningful and my body stopped resembling cotton wool, I moved away from the Alpha. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. The meeting is at 4 o'clock. We have 6 hours to spare, so I suggest we have some fun. When else will we get a chance like this? Gara smiled. Naruto-kun, let's go get some ice cream. I know a delicious cafe not far from here. Let's go. He easily agreed with the Alpha's proposal. I'm going to the movies, Lee said, after which he ran off to a place known only to him. Kiba, are you with us? I asked the brown-haired man, to which he smiled and ruffled my hair, citing his own business. So in a couple of minutes we were walking with Gara for ice cream. People who were scurrying back and forth turned around and smiled at us. It was uncomfortable to catch interested and admiring glances, the latter were aimed right at the Alpha. He looked amazing. His black jeans were more than appropriate, emphasizing the slender legs of the Alpha. The black t-shirt hugged the perfect abs, which I did not have. No, I had a flat and toned stomach with barely noticeable muscle relief, but this guy was 100 times better. His omega was lucky to have such an alpha with a perfect body. Black leather jacket and black sneakers. Still, the army knew what to do with the body of a soldier when he got to serve. Is everything okay? Sabaku asked, breaking him out of his thoughts. In full, showing a finger up. Gaara smiled and we silently headed for ice cream again. As we were approaching the cafe, my phone vibrated, indicating a new text message had arrived. And while Gaara was ordering ice cream and drinks for us, I decided to find out who it was that couldn't sleep so early in the morning. That someone turned out to be Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, good morning. I hope you slept well and came up with a plan to save me from Suigetsu. Fox, morning is never good. I thought you needed to find an Omega and negotiate a fictitious relationship with him. Uchiha Sasuke, not an option. Where there are fictional ones, there are real ones. Fox, not always. Uchiha Sasuke, I just need to get rid of one very annoying Omega. No offense. And not to tie another one to myself. Fox, sir, you have an inflated sense of self-esteem. Uchiha Sasuke HN. Oh my god, why am I so kind and generous? Yes, I am annoyed by this alpha with his delusions of grandeur and inflated self-esteem, but at the same time, it seems to me that he is not so bad. And Sway is really going too far with him. I need to help the guy, and then ask for something in return and forget about him like a bad dream. Yes, that is exactly what I will do. Fox, okay, so be it, I'll help. From now on, we'll date, but let's agree right away that we'll break up in a week or 2 weeks, maximum. I don't need a relationship. After 3 minutes of silence, the brunette finally answered. Uchiha Sasuke, it depends. Chapter 5 Gaara ordered me vanilla ice cream with chocolate chips and orange juice. For himself, he ordered regular chocolate ice cream and iced coffee. We decided to sit outside, to breathe some fresh air, so to speak. Although, where in the metropolis can you find fresh air? Even parks cannot replace or at least slightly compensate for the forest, where the air is truly clean and fresh. Of course, if this forest is not next to a military training ground. Very tasty, I said after trying the ice cream and smiled happily. If you want, I'll buy you some more, Gaara answered me, taking a sip of coffee. We sat and enjoyed the warm day, delicious ice cream and just great company. When the ice cream was eaten and I was sprawled on the chair like a happy carcass, Gaara decided to break the silence. Naruto-kun, can I ask you a question? Asked the alpha, looking at me carefully. Of course, I replied, taking a sip of my juice. Do you have a boyfriend? And at that moment, as usually happens in movies, I choked and coughed, which caused Gaara to immediately fly up to me and start lightly tapping me on the back. What? Clearing his throat and coming to his senses, he answered a question with a question. I'm asking if you have a boyfriend? No, he said, blushing deeply for some reason and looking down at his hands. After that, there was silence again, which no one was in a hurry to break. Having finished our drinks, we headed to the nearest park to feed the ducks. Whose idea was this, you ask? Of course, mine. Alphas don't do this, it's not cool or manly. And I'm an Omega and I can do it. Even if I were an Alpha, I would still feed these birds, because I've never cared much about the opinions of others. I don't live for them, and it's not for them to judge me. They are so cute, I said, throwing food to the birds when we finally reached the park and I sat comfortably on the bank. Yes, the Alpha answered, sitting down next to him. Sometimes I envy them. Why not? They are free, the young man said, looking at the sky and covering his eyes from the bright sun. I didn't respond to his statement, I just bit my lip and continued feeding the birds. But Gaara was right, the birds really were free, unlike people, especially government employees. Military, doctors, firefighters and police, they all have to obey the state and in case of emergency drop everything they are doing and come to the call. No, we are all hostages of the state, but it is these professions that, in my opinion, are the most deprived of freedom and unhappy. Yes, we help people and do everything for them, but they do not even suspect how much effort it costs us. Time flies quickly in nature and with interesting activities. While I was admiring the birds and feeding them, Gaara was lying on the grass and dozing. He was awakened by a phone call, which caused him to suddenly open his eyes and, taking out his phone, answer it. Yes? Gaara-kun, take me away. Lee whined into the phone. Where are you and what have you done again? Abruptly getting to his feet. I looked at him in surprise and stood up too. I didn't like how quickly the alpha's expression changed. First there was fear, then surprise, and then anger. Gaara listened attentively to his interlocutor, nervously and angrily squeezing the phone receiver. After the conversation was over and the phone was put back in his pocket, Gaara tiredly rubbed the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes for a moment. Did something happen? I asked, looking at the alpha with concern. Lee is in the hospital and as far as I understand, he broke his arm, the guy answered me as calmly as possible. What an idiot! How annoying! Kicking an innocent stone with his foot. What hospital is he in? Kabashima. This is the hospital where I worked, I said decisively and, grabbing the guy by the hand, headed towards the metro. In just 20 minutes we were there and standing near the information desk, where we learned Lee's room number and the name of the attending physician. Imagine my surprise when the attending physician turned out to be my mother Kushina. What's wrong with you? Gaara asked, looking at my smile in surprise. My mother is his attending physician, he answered, smiling and grabbing his hand again, he went in the direction we needed. When we entered the room, Lee was sitting on the bed and talking to my mother. She was explaining to him that he should keep his arm in a brace and not strain it as much. She was surprised when she saw me, but then she smiled and came over to me and hugged me. I miss you, I whispered, hugging. Me too, son. No matter how hard Kushina tried to hold back her tears, she couldn't, and a couple of salty drops still rolled down her cheeks. Are you eating well? Yes, I answered, kissing her forehead first and then wiping the salty drops from her face. Everything is fine, don't worry about me, smile. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be doing your internship at the training ground? We were asked to bring some documents from the city, and this wounded man is one of my escorts, pointing to Lee. And who is this handsome young man? She asked, looking at Gaara. This is Gaara and he is also my escort, Lieutenant Sabaku, but on behalf of the spec. I didn't let him finish, abruptly and as unnoticeably as possible from my mother, stepping on his foot. He didn't get indignant or advertise it somehow, reading from my eyes that it was best to remain silent now. Are you okay? Gaara asked, walking up to Lee's bed and examining his bandaged arm. I will live, but I won't be able to complete the task, the patient said with a broad smile. What an idiot! The red-haired man pronounced his verdict, and then gave him a slap on the neck under my mother's surprised gaze. Are they always like this? She asked then. I nodded. Then my mother wished Lee a speedy recovery, wished me luck and hugged me tightly once more, and left, citing a lot of work. Rock Lee was given another injection of painkiller, examined, and, having prepared all the necessary documents, released. We didn't say a word the whole way to the hospital exit. The only thing that worried me now was how we would complete our task. Lee was supposed to pretend to be one of the brothel guards and open the back door for us, and also get security uniforms for Kiba and Gaara. You ask, why do we need 3 guards? One would go to the entrance of the VIP room, where the negotiations would take place, and this person was supposed to be Gaara, as the calmest and most reasonable of all. The second one is in the very center of the building, that is, in the room with video surveillance, and is ready at any moment to turn off or slightly spoil the pictures on the monitors. Kiba should do this as a person who speaks to computers on you. The latter is located near the central entrance and waits for the guests, after which he takes them to the meeting place and goes to the back entrance, where he immediately locks the door and makes sure that no one leaves. My role was as a backup, and I had to be in a small cafe across the street, listening to the conversation of my colleagues on the radios given to us. And if during the mission a shootout begins and my new friends are wounded, I had to provide them with emergency medical care. But now, walking along the noisy hospital corridor, I did not know how to get out of the current situation. Lee was the only person who could enter the brothel in a security uniform unnoticed, since his friend worked there. He decided to help his old friend. As soon as we left the hospital, Gaara hit the brunette on the neck again. Enough. Lee whined, rubbing the bruised area with his healthy hand. How did you manage to break your arm? What did you get yourself into again? I didn't get involved in anything, it just happened that way. You always say that when it comes to Omega. Well, okay. It was a brown-eyed brunette in Omega. She smiled sweetly at me before the movie and I decided to get to know her. I went up to her and was about to start talking, when someone grabbed my arm and twisted it. As it turned out, it was the alpha of this girl and she was smiling at him, not at me. The alpha told me about his adventure, after which I couldn't help but laugh. Sorry, I said, brushing away the tears that had come from laughter. Okay. Gaara began to speak, exhaling deeply. The plan of action is changing. First, we need to find Kiba and then I'll tell you everything. Lee and I nodded in agreement and began to wait for an answer from Kiba, who answered Gaara's call on the second ring. The brown-haired man promised to come as soon as possible to the cafe where I was supposed to be. And so, an hour later, the whole team was assembled. The alphas ordered themselves a cup of espresso, while I again drank my favorite orange juice and ate currant cheesecake. Here's the plan, Gaara began, taking a sip of the hot drink. Naruto enters the brothel. What? I screamed, staring at Alpha in shock, causing everyone in the cafe to immediately look at us. Sorry, Kiba said, smiling and raising his hands in a conciliatory gesture. Why me? I asked, calming down and biting into the cheesecake. Let me finish first, and then you can be indignant. Sorry. So, you'll go into the brothel with me. We'll find Friendly, he'll give you the uniform for us, after which I'll change and go to the position, and you'll go to the back entrance, taking a map of the establishment out of his pocket and pointing me to the right place. Open the door and let Kiba in, who'll immediately head to the video surveillance center. Lock the back entrance right away and go to the main entrance, where you'll meet our guests. They won't be surprised by what the Omega meets. No, on the contrary. A handsome Omega will make them relax more and everything will go even easier. They will not have any suspicions about wiretapping. And me? Lee asked, pointing at himself. What should I do? And you try not to get into another adventure. When Naruto returns to the entrance, you will pick him up and you will wait for us in the cafe. Yes, sir. The military answered in chorus, which again attracted the attention of others. There was only an hour left before their mission, and the closer the appointed time approached, the more nervous I became that I wouldn't cope. Silently getting up from my seat, I headed to the toilet, where I turned on the cold water and put my hands under it. My face was burning, and my hands were shaking, either from fear or from anticipation of a secret operation. Having washed up and calmed down at least a little, I returned to my friends, who immediately fell silent upon seeing me. We have to go, Gaara said 20 minutes later, carefully taking my hand. Everything will be fine, he assured me as he approached the entrance. I nodded and took a deep breath, smiling at Alpha, after which we entered the building together. The guard, noticing us, immediately jumped up and taking me by the elbow, led me to the side. Lee warned that you would be in his place. Yes. My name is... Sora, Gaara interrupted me. It doesn't matter. I'm in Lee's debt, that's why I'm helping you, but if anything goes wrong, I'll turn you in right away, the guard said, handing me 2 sets of uniform, one of which I immediately gave to Gaara. While the Alpha went to change, I headed to the back entrance. There, I opened the door and let Kiba in. The Alpha was tense and nervous, and as I handed him the uniform, I noticed a gun hidden in the waistband of my pants. Following my gaze, Kiba shook his head and, ruffling my hair, went to change. When he left, I locked the door as Gaara had told me to and headed for the main entrance. There were less than 4 meters left to the entrance when my phone vibrated, notifying me of a new message. Sasuke was texting again. He sure knows when to text me. Uchiha Sasuke, be careful today and come back safe and sound, my love. I read the message for a long time and couldn't understand what he meant by be careful and darling. What a joker. I wanted to answer his strange message, but that guard Lee's friend quickly came up to me and put me next to him. They're here, was all he told me, and then I quickly put the phone in my jeans pocket. Well, let's get started. equals 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 chapter 6 equals 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 equals. Commentary on chapter 6. I wrote it from my phone. There may be mistakes, not even that they are there. So, if it's not too much trouble, please click on the PB. I hope you like it. And yes, the work as usual went beyond the mini grinny face with sweat. 6 tall men entered the building, 2 of whom were in the middle. Noticing me, one of them came out of his fortress, and smiling broadly, took my hand. Are you our escort? He asked me then, stroking my hand with his pale, rough palms. My name is Orochimaru. Nice to meet you. He gave the most charming smile he could muster. Urano Sora. But just Sora to you. Nice to meet you, Sora, he said, letting go of my hand, only to place his hand on my waist the next moment. Lead the way, sunshine. A flock of goosebumps ran across my body from the unpleasant and unusual touches. None of the alphas had ever dared to touch me with a finger without my consent, and now, I personally gave my permission to brazenly paw me and get handsy. What wouldn't you do for the sake of a mission? As we walked along the brightly lit corridors, Orochimaru whispered something in my ear, causing me to nod and smile, receiving an approving smile in return. Having brought them to the right room, I was about to take my leave and leave, but the second high-ranking person did not give me this opportunity, taking my hand and leading me inside. Orochimaru dismissed his guards and told them to relax a little while they would sign the agreements. Of course, my presence during the conversation between these two was to my advantage, but an unpleasant chill still appeared under my skin. Gaara, who had been standing near the door this whole time and watching us, nervously clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, but only I noticed it. The room was in semi-darkness, and on a soft leather sofa sat 2 cute Omegas, who immediately jumped up as the guests entered the room. A spacious room in dark burgundy tones, a black carpet, a dark crystal chandelier. The furniture here was a black leather sofa with 2 armchairs, a dark coffee table and a bar counter with prepared drinks. There were also 2 doors in this room, one of which clearly led to the bathroom, and the second to the bedroom. After all, this is a VIP room. The 2 Omegas I didn't recognize looked me up and down and snorted contemptuously. The dark-haired boy approached Orochimaru and extended his pale palm, receiving a smile and a gentle touch. My name is Ichiro Sora, the Omega introduced himself. And this is my friend Leon Bolencho. He's from Italy, pointing to the fair-haired youth. Nice to meet you. Leon smiled, extending his hand to the second alpha. Who are you? This question was clearly addressed to me. All thoughts immediately disappeared from my head, and a slight tremor ran through my body. I didn't know what to say or do in such a case, and no one had warned me about this ill-considered situation. My hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding wildly when Orochimaru sat down on the sofa and, without asking my permission, sat me on his lap, tightly wrapping his arms around my waist. This is Urano Sora, the man answered for me, causing me to swallow nervously and relax a little. He was hired to accompany us. Orochimaru-san, let's finally get down to business. The Omegas can wait, the second alpha smiled, sitting down in the chair opposite us and taking documents out of a black briefcase. Sora, sunshine, go have fun with the Omegas while your daddies are working. Or better yet, prepare yourself for us. I've been yearning for hot and passionate bodies, Orochimaru said, lowering his palm to my ass and squeezing it. Knowing that I would be hard of hearing in the next room and that there was a huge chance of being exposed by the Omegas, I couldn't think of anything better than to press myself closer to Alpha and wrap my arms around his neck. I can't tear myself away from you, Orochimaru-san, I whispered in a languid voice into his ear under the displeased gaze of his friend. Even so, licking his lips vulgarly, in that case, don't leave me and stay close. We'll finish quickly. I smiled triumphantly and kissed the man on the cheek, trying to hide my disgust at all this as best as possible. But since no one had killed me or attacked me yet, everything was fine. Leon and Sora wanted to stay with us too, but they were not given such mercy, being sent to the bedroom. So, let's get started, the second alpha began. As you already know, the Sharingan Company is going to merge with the Sarutobi Company, and if they do this, your Orochimaru Incorporated will be in trouble. They will destroy you immediately. What do you suggest? Orochimaru asks, stroking my buttocks. As you remember, I am one of the best employees of this very company, and it is within my power to correct the documents on the merger of the companies. But you understand that as soon as the Sarutobi company learns about the leak from Sharingan, it will immediately declare war on you, and I, as the person who carried out this whole scam, will be in great danger. What do you want? I want protection and a decent salary for my work. I think $7 million will be enough for the first time, the Alpha smiled, handing us the documents. 6. Orochimaru answered him without reading the papers he handed him. 7. 5.5. We have a deal, the man reluctantly agreed with the proposal. But I also need protection. Of course, Orochimaru answered, getting up from the couch, leaving me alone on the couch. I immediately stood up after him, quickly straightening my clothes. I saw how Orochimaru looked at his companion. Nothing good could be expected from him. The Alpha looked straight and tenaciously, overwhelming with his aura. Orochimaru offered his hand and the stranger immediately shook it. Then the brunette ordered me to bring them 2 glasses of whiskey from the bar, and I hurried to do so, since standing next to them was becoming dangerous, and, I would say, scary. You never know what these Alphas will come up with, and what they are capable of. Once the men had finished their drink, Orochimaru asked me to go to the bathroom and clean myself up. I wanted to stay and find out what would happen next, but the Alpha was looking at me again with a dominating and very dangerous look, which made me smile at those present and quickly hurried to the bathroom. Before I had time to close the door tightly, a loud shot rang out into the room. My ears started ringing, my body instantly weakened, and I fell to my knees. Then I heard quick steps, the next door opened and 2 Omegas clearly ran out of it. The moment and silence were again broken by 2 shots. My head was in a mess, my hands were shaking, a small tremor ran through my body, and when I heard the steps become clearer and closer to me, not thinking of anything better, I slammed the door and locked it. My brain was frantically trying to figure out how to act in this situation, while my body remained wobbly and barely functioning from the stress I was experiencing now. It took my brain a while to realize that I had a microphone in my ear and that I could call for help at any moment, and when it seemed I was ready to do so, my voice simply did not obey me, producing only a pitiful wheeze. Sora, sunshine, open the door, Orochimaru called me in a gentle voice. I won't hurt you and I won't let anyone hurt you. Gaara, I called my new friend, sobbing. Gaara, I called Alpha even louder, hearing no answer. Naruto, are you okay? Kiba asked me. Naruto, answer me. Kiba, I called the brown-haired man through sobs. I'm scared. Sora, my boy, and again that terrible voice behind the door. I'm afraid that if you don't open the door for me now, I'll have to break it down. And how I don't want to do that. I sat on the cold floor, leaning my back against the door and hugging my knees, praying for this hell to end quickly and for us to end up in the barracks, or better yet, at home. God, but why did all this shit have to happen to me? God, I was so scared at that moment, and it was also very stuffy. It felt like all the oxygen in the room had been sucked out, forcing me to breathe deeply and take off the t-shirt I hated now. My body was covered in sweat, and my ass became very wet. Sora-kun, I see someone is in heat, the Alpha said in a sickeningly sweet voice, trying to open the door again. Gaara-kun, Kiba-kun, save me! I screamed at the top of my voice, not afraid of being discovered. Better to be found out than to be raped by an old bastard. God, I'd rather lie down under Gaara or Kiba than this Orochimaru who just killed 3 innocent people 20 minutes ago. I always knew my ass was a magnet for trouble, but I never thought it would be this much fun. My jeans were getting tighter and tighter, and the air in the room was so hot that it seemed like I was going to burn alive here. And it seemed like the heat had been recent, and it shouldn't have come at such an inopportune time, but I've always been a winner in life. As luck would have it, there weren't even any pills to slow down this process. Suddenly there was silence and Orochimaru stopped pounding on the door, which I was incredibly happy about and sighed with relief. But the silence was interrupted by the sound of an incoming message. It was not difficult to guess who this person was. Uchiha Sasuke, how is your mission? I'm worried. Fox, awesome. Don't worry. Everything is fine. After answering the message, I turned off the sound. It was worth at least somehow to knock down my smell and at least a little bit to stop the rapidly gaining momentum of the heat. And since I was in the bathroom, my choice fell on a cold shower. Without undressing, I turned on the cold water to the maximum and stood under the stream of water. But before that I moved the nightstand to the door, thereby blocking the handle. An omega in heat was contraindicated to take an ice shower, but what wouldn't you do to save your innocence and fulfill your mission? My alpha protectors were still in no hurry to come to my aid. I don't know how much time had passed since I stood under the water, but the fact is that my body was no longer burning. All that worried me was the calm before the storm and my stiff body. My teeth were chattering and my body was shivering from the cold, but I continued to stand under the streams of water, hiding my scent as long as possible, and thus slowing down the heat. Some more time passed, after which I stopped standing altogether, and simply sat in the shower stall, hugging my knees with my hands and looking at the door. There was a roar, shots, and then silence again. A moment later, there was loud knocking on the door again, but I had no strength left to answer, much less get up from my seat. Surprisingly, my head was completely empty and calm. Before I could blink, the nightstand was on the opposite side from the door, and the door was completely torn off its hinges. Fear instantly enveloped my body and I prepared to feel rough palms on me, but instead the water in the shower stall was quickly turned off, and I was wrapped in a large terry towel and pressed tightly to my chest. The warmth emanating from this person pleasantly envelopes my body, and his smell of freshly cut grass and ripe apples makes my heart speed up its rhythm. I want to be in this person's arms forever. When fatigue finally got the better of me, I raised my head and the last thing I saw was scarlet hair. Gaara. I woke up from a terrible chill and a wild headache. But the heat, surprisingly, did not bother me at all. I somehow sat up in bed and looked around. I was in a small room with another bed to my left. Opposite the beds was a medium-sized white wardrobe with a mirror. Near the window stood a wooden white table and chair. The curtains in the room were drawn, so I could not judge the time. Wrapping myself tighter in the blanket, I got out of bed and headed for the door, but my legs gave way and I fell to the floor with a thud, cursing under my breath. A second later, my teammates were already near me. Gaara was the first to come to his senses from what he saw and picked me up in his arms, returning me to the bed again. Carefully and very tenderly wrapping me in the blanket and fluffing up the pillow, he smiled and gently ran his fingers over my cheek, sending a flock of pleasant goosebumps through my body. "Forgive us," Gaara whispers, looking down. "We couldn't come to your aid in time," Kiba says, approaching my bed. "I really tried, but it didn't work out," Lee said. "Orochimaru's men caught me off guard. Someone leaked information about our mission." The Alpha repented, kneeling by my bed just like Kiba. Everything ended well. "Did we complete our mission?" I answered, trying to smile as encouragingly as possible at the guys. "Yes, the mission is accomplished, but Naruto," from Gaara's intonation and behavior it became clear that not everything went so smoothly. "It is understandable, I disrupted the operation with my heat, for which I wanted to apologize to the guys, but Sabaka did not continue. Orochimaru is dead and the companies, Sarutobi and Sharingan, have been warned about the entire operation that took place." "But," I reminded, "we came running to your aid too late. You sat under cold water for 45 minutes, during which you interrupted your heat and smell. That's what I was trying to achieve." "Yes, you had a good idea," Gaara whispered, placing his warm palm on the top of my head. "But such an action is contraindicated for omegas in everyday life, not to mention during estrus. You didn't just stop your estrus for a while, you got rid of it completely." "I don't understand." The brain refused to perceive the information received, and the heart froze in anticipation. "You were so cold that all of the omega's reproductive functions stopped functioning properly. We're very sorry," Kiba finishes. And then there was deathly silence, which was interrupted by the sound of a loudly opening door. A couple of seconds later, a breathless Suigetsu ran into the bedroom together with Kabuto and Sasuke. The latter froze and clenched his teeth when he saw me. Naruto, my friend, runs up to me crying and hugs me tightly. "Why didn't you tell me you were dating Sasuke?" "What?" That was all I could say now, because Kiba's last words were ringing in my head like an alarm. "Sasuke and Kabuto told me everything. How could you hide all this from me and have an affair behind my back? And you call yourself a friend? Are they dating? Gaara and Kiba asked at the same time, surprised. Yes, for 3 whole days, Suigetsu answered, letting me go and wiping away his tears. What? Naruto! The Omega called out to me worriedly. How long was I unconscious? 2.5 days, Lee answered. You should have seen the faces of Kiba and Gaara when they found you almost unconscious in the bathroom. It was Kiba who killed Orochimaru, ignoring the order not to touch him and give him a chance to leave. Gaara, meanwhile, took you to the hotel. You understand, we couldn't go to the hospital, because then we would have to explain how everything happened. On the way, we called the doctor and he examined you, took some tests and promised not to spread the word about what happened and maintain strict confidentiality. And I decided to call your friend, hoping to cheer you up. I listened to everything in silence, then closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Tears froze in my eyes, which I did not want to show to anyone, especially to the alphas. Suigetsu saw my tears and at that moment said that I looked ridiculous and very creepy. Therefore, after that incident, I tried not to show them to anyone and to be strong. But now, being in the presence of 5 alphas, 2 of whom attracted me like a magnet, I simply could not give in. Lee and Kabuto, as if sensing my mood and emotions, hurried out of the bedroom, taking with them the resisting Kiba. Only me and Suigetsu and Gaara and Sasuke remained in the room. The latter was still standing near the door and was in no hurry to take a step forward, right up until the moment when Gaara leaned over to me and kissed me on the forehead under the clearly surprised look of Sasuke and Suigetsu. Naruto? The Omega called me. Do you want to explain what's going on here? He's mine, the alphas answered for me at the same time. What? Chapter 7 What do you mean by this? I asked when I had recovered a little from the shock. So understand it, Uchiha answered me as if he was discussing the weather outside the window, for which I was ready to hit him again. You are mine. Sasuke took 3 steps and found himself next to my bed, leaning towards my face, gently touching my cheek with his lips, causing my cheeks to flush, and I quickly hid under the blanket to the cheerful laughter of the alpha and my friend. Naruto is not a thing to be controlled. He is a person who deserves more than you, Gaara said, getting up from the bed and coming close to Sasuke. Deciding that I was missing the fun, I crawled out of my temporary shelter and stared at the 2 alphas. Suigetsu had settled down next to me under the blanket, gently squeezing my hand and smiling encouragingly. It was clear from his gaze that he was upset by the news of my relationship with Sasuke, but he was more upset by what had happened to us. He, like no one else, knew how much I wanted children in the future, and now all of that was under threat. With my own hands I had destroyed that little dream that I wanted to make come true with my beloved. Well, of course, when I find him and can make sure that he is my person. And the fairy tale about truth is not considered here. Why do I need a true alpha who cannot make me and our future children happy? We are dating, which means I am worthy of him. Don't you think so? Uchiha asked, grinning. If you were worthy of him and really wanted to take care of him like you say, you wouldn't have come to him 2 days later, Gaara replied in the same tone. Looking at these 2, my heart and mind were torn apart. For some reason, my heart was screaming that I should support Sasuke and dot all the I's, but my mind was saying that Gaara was better, and he was really ready to do anything for me. And it seemed like I was just starting to get to know these 2 men, but in my chest and soul there were feelings as if I had known them forever. And these smells that so strongly excite my soul. Gaara smells like freshly cut grass and ripe apples, while Sasuke smells like spicy chocolate with cinnamon, exactly the same one that I like to drink at home in the morning. I think Naruto should make the choice himself. Suigetsu distracts me from my thoughts, squeezing my hand a little tighter. I nod in agreement, looking at the guys who froze in an instant. Both of them look at me with readiness to accept any of my choices, but I don't know how to make this choice. I am equally drawn to both men. But if I remember, the relationship with Sasuke was fictitious and did not carry any feelings, so I made the choice in favor of loneliness, thereby shocking everyone present. But Naruto? My friend was about to protest, but I stopped him with just one look. My body didn't want to obey me, but I still managed to get out of bed and go to the living room to Kiba and the others. My eyes were burning again from unshed tears, and my heart felt like it was locked in a heavy vice. And why did it hurt so much now? Seeing me, Kiba immediately jumped up from the couch and carefully hugged me, for which I was very grateful. I don't know what moved me at that moment, but I just grabbed the Alpha's uniform tighter and burst into tears. The brown-haired man carefully stroked my back and whispered some sweet nothings in my ear, trying to console and calm me down. My heart ached and my body shook. I was ready to collapse on that very spot, but the caring and strong hands of my teammate did not give me such an opportunity. Kabuto quickly got up from the couch, poured water into a glass and handed it to me along with 2 pills. I looked uncertainly and slightly apprehensively at the 2 white circles in his hands. "It's a sedative and a pain reliever," he explained to me, smiling. I nodded and carefully drank the medicine, hoping that it would help me as soon as possible. Kiba helped me sit down on the sofa, and Gaara, who entered the room right after I left, covered me with a woolen blanket. Inuzuka looked dejected and haggard, but he carefully hid it behind his smile. I understood him, and even felt his state to some extent. He killed a man, ignoring the order. And although the mission was accomplished, the unpleasant aftertaste from the fact that he went against the will of our commander made him nervous. For disobeying the military, there was a threat of leaving, without any further promotion in the service, and in general after such a loud departure there was a chance of becoming unemployed. "I'm sorry," I whispered to Kiba as he sat down at my feet. "Everything is fine, don't think or worry about it." And again that fake smile. "I want to go to the barracks," I said as I fell asleep. "You're still too weak to come back. Mike Guy gave you time to rest and gain strength before you come back." Gaara and Sasuke were ordered to return to the barracks as soon as possible to write a report. The Alpha answered me in a gentle voice, stroking my ankle. "Don't worry." "Why Sasuke? He wasn't with us. And why is this Alpha here anyway?" "Sasuke is the leader of the Shadow Squad and he is the one who is one of the heirs of the Sharingan Company." "What?" Suigetsu and I exclaimed in unison and looked at the brunette, who was standing near the curtained window, clasping his hands. "I don't need this," was all Uchiha answered before leaving the room, loudly slamming the door. Kiba shook his head and I fell silent. "I really can't go with you." "No. The order was given, you and Lee should rest a little before you return. And when you return, we will definitely throw a picnic and celebrate." The brown-haired man smiled, getting up from his knees and ruffling his hair. "You just wait. Gain strength, and most importantly, don't cry. I don't like Omegas who cry and look so sad. Bye, Naruto." "Bye," I whisper, fighting sleep with all my might. "Take care of him," Kibali says, then waves his hand at me and leaves. "Naruto, I'm being honest in my words," Gaara tells me before following his friend and kisses my forehead. "Think about it and take care of yourself." When Kiba and Gaara left, the room instantly became so lonely and very quiet. Suigetsu sat next to me and just stared at one point, not trying to break the silence. Lee and Kabuto headed to the bedroom, leaving me alone with my friend. "Everything will be fine," the Omega whispers to me as I settle comfortably on his lap. "Kiba," I whisper, closing my eyes, and tears start flowing from my eyes again. The thought that I wouldn't be able to have children at the moment faded into the background, putting the future of my new friend first. Inuzuka was a handsome, strong and smart alpha, but when his life or the lives of those close to him were under threat, his brain switched off, leaving only animal instincts in its place. And now, when they were all returning to the barracks, I didn't know what to think. If I weren't an Omega, then there wouldn't have been any problems, and everything would have been resolved differently. For the first time in my life, I hated my essence, because it was only because of it that everyone fell into a trap and, what's no less important, I couldn't help them in any way, hiding in the bathroom. And I didn't help them and ruined my health. It was with these thoughts that I fell asleep on my friend's lap. I woke up from the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall. The curtains were still drawn, and Suigetsu was not in the room. Apparently, he was tired and went to lie down in the bedroom. Lee was sleeping in the chair opposite me. I got up from the couch as quietly as possible and covered the Alpha with a blanket, after which I found my dry clothes and shoes in the closet. Having dressed as quickly and quietly as possible, I left the room. I didn't know how much time had passed since the Alpha's departure, but I knew for sure that I needed to return to the barracks as soon as possible. The sun was shining brightly outside and people were hurrying about their business as usual, not paying attention to the amazing weather. Having caught a taxi and promised to pay him a tidy sum for such a long route, we nevertheless went. The driver turned out to be a middle-aged beta. We spent the first hour of the journey in silence, until the man finally decided to break it. "Excuse me, but what is such a charming beta doing in a military barracks? I need to urgently correct one mistake," I threw at him, without taking my eyes off the rapidly changing landscape outside the window. I didn't get indignant and correct the man about my true nature. It would only waste time and nerves, and I really looked more like a beta now. Then silence fell again and I didn't notice how I fell asleep. This time I woke up from the loud voice of a man I didn't know, but quickly remembering where and with whom I was, I opened my eyes and smiled. We were standing near a high iron fence. Then one of the soldiers approached us, causing the beta to shrink and grip his steering wheel tightly. "Good day. Here are your documents," said the young guy when the man rolled down the window. "Thank you very much," I said, handing him the well-deserved sum and going out into the street. "I am Senior Lieutenant Uzumaki Naruto of the Special Squad, Shadow. I arrived at the barracks on the orders of Colonel Mato Guy." I loudly introduced myself to the soldier, and he saluted me and opened the gate. Turning back a little, I noticed the shocked face of the beta. He was clearly surprised by what he heard and saw, so I just smiled and nodded at him. The soldier who met me at the edge of the barracks kindly offered to give me a ride to the headquarters. The car stopped and I said, "Thank you," and ran inside, where I came face to face with Sasuke. And again that scent of spicy chocolate and cinnamon enveloped me, making my heart race and my lips dry out. "What are you doing here?" Uchiha asks, breaking the sudden silence. All eyes are focused on us, which makes my cheeks look like ripe tomatoes again. Uchiha is silent, and I am in no hurry to answer him. He carefully hugs me around the waist and looks into my eyes, sending a flock of goosebumps through my body. "Where is Kiba?" I answer after a couple of minutes, getting out of the brunette's embrace. "He and Shikamaru were sent to the tank training ground." "Thank you." And I ran again, ignoring the alpha's screams coming from behind. I reached the tank training ground in about 10 minutes. Kiba was standing half naked on the training ground, washing his tank, while Shikamaru was talking to someone on the radio. Seeing me, Inuzuka stopped what he was doing and quickly came up to me. I, on a momentary impulse, hugged him tightly, not paying attention to the whistling and applauding alphas and the surprised Shikamaru, and especially not paying attention to the alpha's wet body. "Naruto," Kiba whispered quietly, still hugging me back. "Forgive me," I whisper, looking into his brown eyes. "What kind of people?" I hear the voice of our colonel, which makes me quickly move away from Kiba and approach him. "Good health, Comrade Colonel," I say loudly, saluting. "Senior Lieutenant Uzumaki Naruto has arrived as per your order, and is ready to carry out your orders." "Come with me," he answers me, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Yes, sir." Mike Guy walked ahead of me, muttering under his breath as I thought about the conversation we were about to have. It was good that Kiba was on the military base, but if he was washing a tank, that could only mean one thing: he had been demoted, or worse, kicked out of the Shadow Squad. "Mato Guy, may I address you?" I began, not waiting for us to reach the headquarters. Alpha stops abruptly and looks at me intently. I give permission. "My guy, I would like to ask for forgiveness for the last mission. I was the one at fault that day and I am ready to take the punishment for it." HN, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Your scent really has changed, or rather, completely disappeared. Kiba and Gaara told me about what happened and Inuzuka took full responsibility, because he was the one who disobeyed my order. He did it to protect me." I raised my voice, completely forgetting who I was talking to. "I am the only one to blame for that mission. Please punish me, not him." Inuzuka Kiba was expelled from the Shadow Squad, and be thankful that he still remains at the military base. How quickly people change. Just a couple of minutes ago this man smiled and spoke to me like a good friend, and now he has become a stern and confident military man. "Mato Guy, please bring him back." I'm ready to do anything, I begged, squeezing his elbow. Now I didn't care about my dignity and pride. Since I had lost my essence and endangered my teammates, I deserved punishment, and this time I really wasn't afraid. There could be nothing more terrible than what I experienced that day in the bathroom. Now, standing in front of the colonel, in my eyes there was only determination and readiness for any outcome and decision of the commander-in-chief. Okay, Guy took pity on me. I'll return Inuzuka Kiba to the squad, but then you'll have to leave the training ground today. I nodded in agreement and smiled. That was to be expected. I'll write you a recommendation for the university. Thank you, I answered, smiling happily and apologizing again for what happened, running to my friends. Will he leave after all? Gaara asked the colonel, stepping out from the shadow of the tree. We have no other choice. Either he leaves, or Kiba, the man answers him. Don't worry, the recommendations will be good, and you will be able to meet him again. Thank you, the red-haired man replies. Good luck, Gaara, Guy says before heading to headquarters. You'll need it, because Sasuke is the true Omega. I know, but I still won't give up on him. Chapter 8 Commentary on Chapter 8. I apologize for the mistakes. I ran back to Kiba and hugged him tightly. Alpha was again taken aback by my strange behavior and appearance, and so that he wouldn't imagine anything like that, I quickly pulled away and smiled. You are a member of the Shadow Squad again, I announced loudly so that everyone present nearby could hear me correctly. Shikamaru even froze at this news, but when the realization finally came to his mind, he hurried to congratulate his friend. Alpha looked at me carefully and, having decided something to himself, smiled. Naruto, let's have a picnic in honor of this, Kiba happily declared, picking me up in his arms and spinning me around. That's a great idea, Gaara said out of nowhere. Gaara, I quietly called to the red-haired youth when Inuzuka finally deigned to let me go to the ground. Can I talk to you? Of course, he replied, gently taking my hand and leading me to the side. Shikamaru followed us. Kiba shrugged and continued to wash the tank, giving us the opportunity to discuss everything. Nara, of course, was superfluous in this conversation, but since he was going with us, we couldn't send him away. You won't tell him about your departure? The red-haired young man asked me. I don't think it's a good idea, I replied, squatting down. If I tell him now that I'm leaving, he'll try to fix everything, and I don't want him to suffer and humiliate himself because of me again. I'm the only one to blame. It's not your fault and everyone knows it, Shikamaru intervened in the conversation. I was present at the report on your mission, he explained. In that situation, the only one to blame was the one who decided to set you up and, unfortunately, we never found out who it was. And Kiba simply decided to take responsibility for it. And yes, we are all very sorry. And I didn't need to say what he meant. I smiled sadly and stood up. The dog immediately carefully hugged me from behind and put his chin on my shoulder, causing a flock of goosebumps to run through my body. Nara, who clearly wanted to say something, but at the sight of Gaara's gaze, remained silent. He once again expressed his approval of the picnic and, waving his hand, left. Why? I asked, not breaking away from the ring of warm arms. I like you? I've liked you since I first noticed you, he replied, his hot breath fanning my neck. But I don't care who you are and I don't want to pressure you with an answer, but I'll still ask, letting go of me and turning me to face him. Naruto, will you be my Omega? Gaara, lowering his gaze to his feet. Sorry, but I'm not ready for a relationship. Is it because of Sasuke? No, that Alpha had nothing to do with it. Honestly, we faked the relationship for Suigetsu because my friend was too clingy to him, and when I realized what I had just said, I bit my lip until it bled. Damn. That's how it is, the Alpha smiled, taking my hands. Naruto, I really want to be with you. But I won't give you what you really deserve. I love you and I want to be with you. He gently pulled me towards him by the waist and gently touched my lips. My body was covered with heat again, and my heart accelerated its rhythm. And it seemed like this kiss was so light and weightless, but meanwhile it evoked in me a range of new and incomprehensible emotions, tenderness and a feeling of security. It seemed like the whole world had disappeared and only the two of us remained in it. I didn't notice how I wrapped my arms around Gaara's neck and began to respond to his kisses. As soon as I responded to his caresses, the alpha smiled and deepened the kiss. My body was burning from the hot hands on my waist, and my heart was about to jump out of my chest. No one knew how long we stood there kissing, and it didn't matter, when in these strong alpha arms you feel needed and, most importantly, loved. Gaara put all his feelings and emotions into the kiss. What a pity that I couldn't do the same. Pulling away from each other, I became embarrassed and buried my face in his shoulder. My cheeks were burning, and my heart was still beating wildly. The dog only smiled at this and, pulling me to him again, hugged me tenderly. The idyll was broken by Kiba, who managed to finish washing the tank and put on a t-shirt. As soon as I noticed him in my field of vision, I immediately jumped away from the alpha and hurried towards the barracks. I was not ready to appear before Kiba red as a tomato, and also nervous. In the evening, as agreed, we had a picnic, to which Kakashi and Might Guy were also invited. Suigetsu, along with Lee and Kabuto, also returned to the training ground as soon as they found out that I had arrived here. Lee and Suigetsu scolded me for a long time for my outrageous behavior, for the fact that I ran away without warning them, and God forbid, I would have gotten sick on the way here. Having promised not to do that again, I made peace with the guys and we continued to cook shashlik together, while the rest of our group prepared the place for this celebration. "Are you going to tell him?" Suigetsu asked me when we were alone in the kitchen. "No," I repeated my answer. "I don't want to ruin the holiday for Kiba and the guys by leaving. He deserves to serve here. He will make an excellent commander-in-chief." "Do as you wish," Sui said, slicing cucumbers. "And what have you decided to do with the alphas? What about Sasuke?" he asked, breaking away from his work and looking at me. "I don't know," he admitted honestly. "After what happened, everything in my life changed so much and became very complicated." "So you won't be with any of them?" "I told you it was all very complicated," raising his voice at his best friend. "If you became a beta, then this is not a reason to take your anger out on me. I just wanted to help you," the Omega tells me through tears and, throwing the cucumbers into the plate, ran out of the room. "What an idiot I am," I said, banging my hand on the tabletop. "I offended my only best friend." "You're definitely an idiot," Sasuke said out of nowhere. "The idiots were asked?" Uchiha locked the door and slowly approached me. He made no attempt to hug me or touch me in any way. The brunette only stood to my right and closed his eyes. There was silence in the kitchen, which none of us were in a hurry to break. And again tears appeared in my eyes, which this time I did not even try to hide. Wiping my hands on my t-shirt, I sat down on the floor and leaned my back on the kitchen cabinet. Uchiha did the same. He carefully put my head on his shoulder and took my hand, which made me jerk slightly, but he did not pull my hand away. My eyes closed on their own, and the tears seemed to be in no hurry to stop. Sasuke was silent, and I was incredibly happy and grateful to him for this. I felt so good sitting on the floor, leaning on Uchiha, that I did not notice how I dozed off. For some reason I often started crying and sleeping. Apparently, the past mission was taking its toll. I woke up from a loud knock on the door. Sasuke, who had been sitting with me all this time, was in no hurry to open it and did not even move. Noticing my awakening, he only squeezed my hand tighter and instantly appeared in front of me. I looked at him in bewilderment, and could not understand what he wanted from me. There was still knocking on the door, but neither Sasuke nor I cared at all. All our attention was focused on each other. His dark brown eyes attracted and fascinated me. It felt like I was drowning in them, and surprisingly, I liked this feeling. Sasuke, not letting go of my hand, grinned and the next second attached himself to my lips, kissing me immediately, insistently, and rather roughly. Having dealt with the confusion, I abruptly pulled my hand away and, gathering my strength, pushed the impudent alpha away from me. The Uchiha was breathing raggedly and quickly, as if he had just run a kilometer in a couple of minutes. I wiped my mouth with my palm and, getting up from the floor, headed for the door. But before I could touch the handle, I was pressed to the brunette's chest. He hugged me tightly, but tenderly at the same time. His scent of spicy chocolate with cinnamon seemed to envelop me, subjugate me, make my mind go cloudy from his touch. I was going to move away from the alpha, but he only hugged me tighter and buried his nose in the back of my head, which caused a flock of goosebumps to run across my body again. I swallowed nervously and froze, waiting for further action. Mentally, I gave myself the instruction that if this guy starts to let go of his hands or climb in for a kiss, then I will simply hit him. And then I will go to Gaara. At least he behaves adequately. "I'm sorry," Sasuke whispers. "I'm sorry." "What?" I ask again, surprised. "Forgive me," the brunette repeats again. "I just like you and I can't do anything about it. Please, Naruto, let's start a real relationship." And there was so much despair and pleading in this voice that my heart sank. The knocking on the door stopped and I sighed with relief, because now I have a chance to digest the information I received. 2 alphas, gorgeous alphas at that, have asked me out and both are not embarrassed by my new status as a beta. Gaara was the alpha who made me feel like I was behind a stone wall. He was gentle, caring, smart, and very strong. He was ready to do anything for his friends. We all realized this on our mission. His scent of freshly cut grass attracted me and excited me, but not in the same way as Sasuke's scent did. And if Uchiha subdued me with his scent, dominated my essence, then the alpha himself repelled me. His behavior was very impulsive and unpredictable for me. Yes, he is handsome, strong, and with him you can feel like you are behind a stone wall, but still something repelled me in him, and so far I do not understand what exactly. Having decided that I wasn't ready for a relationship, and that I needed to get to know the guys better if we were to meet again, of course, I pulled away. I needed to leave the military training ground as soon as possible, so I decided to do it at night, during a picnic. Yes, running away was either officer-like nor manly, but I simply couldn't say goodbye to everyone. It was too painful and offensive, but not for myself, but for those guys who sacrificed their health and lives to save me from that horrible brothel. "I forgive you, but I can't reciprocate your feelings," I answered Sasuke, opening the lock, and then left. "It's hard, but I can handle it because I'm Uzumaki Naruto," I thought as I headed towards my friends. Chapter 9 While everyone was celebrating Kiba's return to the squad, loudly singing music and having fun, I quickly packed my few things into a backpack in the barracks and, after taking a farewell look around the room, hurried outside. There I met one of the soldiers. I think he was a tanker. "I need help, I promise to pay you well," I said without beating around the bush, approaching him. A young alpha of 23 years old with brown eyes and chestnut hair. Yasuo Rion read the name on his uniform. "It depends on what kind of help," he answered me, taking cigarettes and a lighter out of his breast pocket. "I need to get back to the city urgently." "Have you completely lost your mind? It's night outside and we'll get into trouble for desertion." "It won't hurt," I told him without flinching. "So, will you help?" "Okay," he finally agreed after a minute of silence. "Instead of money, fulfill my request." "Which one?" Rion quickly ran into the next building and returned to me a few minutes later in civilian clothes. He had a white envelope in his hands, which he handed to me. "This letter is for my little sister. Please tell her that I love her very much and miss her. The address is given. Why don't you send it to her yourself?" "I have no right. I violated the orders of my superiors and paid for it. And before you start pestering me with questions and, most importantly, before we get caught, let's run to the exit." As it turned out, my new acquaintance had his own bike, which was stored in a local hangar with other personal vehicles of the servicemen. He acted quickly and almost unnoticed, although the hangar guard still had to pay a little for silence and opening the doors. But everything seemed to go smoothly, and here we are, together with Rion, rushing into the city. The whole way I was holding on to the Alpha's belt with all my might, afraid of accidentally falling off the iron horse. But Yasuko was an excellent driver, so there was no need to worry. The whole way a cool wind blew in our faces, and the stars in the sky lit our way. This trip had its own charm. While driving on night roads, when the headwind blows in your face, you feel free. All problems seem so insignificant, and your body is so light that just a little more and you can take off. We got to the city pretty quickly, and I wanted to ask the Alpha to stop at the nearest metro station, arguing that I could handle the rest on my own, but he didn't listen to me and took me to the very entrance. There we exchanged phone numbers and thanked each other again for the help, and said goodbye. I really hoped that the guy wouldn't get into trouble for going AWOL, and wouldn't get into an accident on the way back. To at least ease the gravity of the situation, I quickly took my mobile out of my jacket pocket, and quickly typed out an explanation to Guy so that he wouldn't punish the poor young man even more. A barely familiar person helped me, and this really meant a lot to me. It could mean that there were still kind and sympathetic people left in this world. Gradually it was getting light outside, and I, having found the keys in my backpack, went up to my apartment, hoping that my parents were either fast asleep or on duty. Quietly opening the door and without taking off my shoes, I immediately went to my place, trying not to make too much noise and, if possible, not to turn on the light. The flashlight on my phone helped me with this, so after throwing all my things on the floor and putting the phone on charge, I went to bed and fell asleep instantly. In the morning I was woken up by a phone call on my father's mobile phone, which made me, all sleepy and rumpled, decide to get out of bed and say hello to my parent. My father was in the kitchen, and my mother was in the bathroom. The maid was preparing breakfast, but noticing me, she stopped for a moment and politely said hello. "I'll call back," my father said to his interlocutor and, putting the phone aside, came up to me to hug me. The kitchen clock showed 10 in the morning, which meant I had slept for about 5 hours. Mom, having finished her morning makeover, also hurried to come up to me and hug me. "Son, what happened? Why didn't you warn us that you were coming?" "Kushina, calm down and let our boy go. You're going to strangle him in your arms," the head of the family said, pushing my mother away from me. "I won't strangle anything," she said, feigning indignation. "This is my precious son, how can I harm him? You're talking nonsense here." And she began to feel me up again for any injuries, and then kiss me. "Everything is fine, I just decided that a military training ground is not my thing." "Do you think I'll believe this?" asked the father. They let me go calmly and gave me a letter of recommendation. To convince my parents of my words, I had to go back to my room and get the letter the colonel had prepared from my backpack. As it turned out, he had put it there before I came to the barracks to collect my things. When does he manage to do everything? My parents read the letter several times and, not noticing anything strange or that could serve as my true departure from the detachment, calmed down and apologized for their mistrust. If they knew the truth, they would have locked me up forever. Especially my mother, who began to worry about me at any reason. Oh, these women. "Well, since you're no longer serving at the military training ground, I dare suggest that we celebrate this in the evening in some cozy restaurant," suggested Mom, and it was clear from her expression that she was happy about what was happening, because now I would be under her supervision. "Naruto, find and reserve a table, and your mother and I have to go to work," said the father, after which he took the woman by the hand and led her to the bedroom to get dressed. With all the talk, we didn't notice how quickly the time flew by, and now it was time for them to leave. After showing the adults out the door, I returned to the bedroom and collapsed into bed. I couldn't sleep a wink, and I had no desire to spend the day within 4 walls when the weather outside was beautiful. So I quickly rinsed off in the shower and got dressed. I was wearing light jeans, tapered at the bottom, a light blue t-shirt a couple of sizes larger than I wore, and white sneakers. As it turned out, there were a lot of unread messages from the guys at the training ground and numerous missed calls on my phone. Kiba, Gaara, and Sasuke were calling me the most. I didn't want to answer, talk, or make excuses, so I turned off the sound for notifications, took my headphones out of the drawer, Ryun's letter out of my backpack, checked my phone for charging, and went out, not forgetting to say goodbye to the housekeeper. I decided to have breakfast somewhere in a cafe. Walking along busy streets, I often came across young couples who, without hiding their relationships and feelings, could kiss in the middle of the street or tenderly hug. Romance was in the air. Omegas with strollers or small children were walking in the parks, which made my heart skip a beat. All these people looked happy, and children always mean happiness in the family. Unfortunately, I could no longer dream of this, having lost my chance and the right to a happy family due to my stupidity. Who knew that everything would turn out like this, and that instead of an Omega, I would get used to the role of an inconspicuous Beta? No, these people could also live happily, but I still dreamed of one day having a loving husband, whom I would meet at home after work with a cooked dinner, and our children would happily run around the house and loudly shout, "Daddy." I did not notice how tears flowed down my cheeks, but a little girl of about 6 noticed it. She had long dark hair, braided into 2 spikelets, and bright blue eyes, just like mine. She was wearing a lilac sarafan and cream sandals. In one hand she had a strawberry ice cream, and in the other a lilac handkerchief with butterflies. The girl silently handed me her handkerchief, which made me smile and squat down in front of her. "If I share my ice cream with you, will you stop crying?" she asked, wiping my cheeks with her handkerchief. "Eat yourself, princess," I answered her and smiled as carefree as I could. "Thank you for your concern. Where are your parents?" "My parents are at work, and I'm here walking with the nanny." "Misa, I told you not to run away and not to talk to strangers." The voice of the running woman reached us. "What's your name?" the girl asked me quickly, biting her ice cream. "Naruto." "Nelly, this is Naruto and he is my friend," Misa calmly introduced me to her nanny. "We often see him at the hospital." "Is it true?" the woman asked, looking at me with disbelief. I stood up to my full height and nodded, although to be honest I don't remember meeting this child, especially in the hospital. But if I lied, Misa would definitely get into trouble, and I didn't want that. She had a charming smile that made my soul feel warmer and brighter. I wish I could have a daughter like that someday. "In that case, excuse me," the woman apologized. Then we walked around the park together, or rather we walked hand in hand with Misa in front, and her nanny walked a little behind, talking to someone on the phone. We went with the girl to the playground, played different games, and when we started saying goodbye, she gave me her phone number so that if I felt sad again, I would call her. "I really see you at the hospital a lot," Misa said before going home. "You bring my little sister delicious candies and beautiful origami so that she won't be so hurt and sad." When she waved her hand at me and disappeared around the corner, I began to remember to whom and when I could bring origami candies. And after some time I really did remember a little 4-year-old girl in the oncology department. That child had lung cancer, and I often visited her because she was often alone and rarely talked to anyone, preferring to sit in a corner with her doll. It just so happened that I could visit her very rarely, and so that she would not feel abandoned and lonely, I treated her to candies and gave her paper crafts. Taking out a folded envelope from my jeans pocket, I read the address where the letter should be delivered, and to my surprise it was written for Yuzuho Misa. Deciding that if I didn't give the letter today nothing would happen, I dialed the number of a nice and tasty restaurant to reserve a table. Then I just walked the streets of the city, enjoyed the warm weather and thought about life. I wasn't going to talk about my problems at dinner, but I wasn't going to hide for long the fact that I was no longer an omega, but a beta either. To somehow delay the moment of truth, I had to go to the mall for perfume that could fake my previous orange scent for a while. Having picked the most similar one and paid for the purchase, I returned home. The housekeeper managed to cook dinner and wash my clothes, which were lying on the floor. I didn't feel like eating, but in order not to offend Maria, I had to eat a couple of spoons of soup and rice. It was very tasty. My phone filled with more worried messages from my friends and more calls from Sasuke and Gaara. I didn't want to call the alphas, so I called Suigetsu. "Hello?" I greeted. "Hello?" An indignant voice of a friend was heard. "Hello? Is that all you can tell me now after I called you? Calm down, everything is fine. What place is good? You left us without warning. You just left and didn't even say goodbye. Konohamaru, get out of here the easy way." A smile spread across my face involuntarily. I just imagined the young alpha bothering my best friend again and probably screwing up again. I can't blame him for that, he was too much like me as a child. "Your new friends are not themselves," Sui whispered. "Sasuke takes out his anger on everyone, he was even rude to Kakashi-sensei. Kiba and Shikamaru are washing tanks to somehow calm down the equally nervous Inuzuka. I don't understand. Shikamaru is a supervisor, if you can call him that. He makes sure that this alpha doesn't screw up. And Gaara? And this alpha ran off somewhere early in the morning. I'm sorry, of course, but I can't keep an eye on them because I'm in a different part of the training ground and in a different squad." The friend flared up. "And what the hell is going on anyway? Why didn't you just say goodbye to me and explain anything?" "Sorry, it had to be that way. was all I could answer him. I don't give a damn about your apologies. I'm all worked up here, you're not answering my calls or messages. I thought you were in trouble again or, even worse, dead. And when your boyfriend goes crazy and can't find a place for himself, I thought I'd go crazy and was preparing for the worst. But you called, and I seemed to calm down a little. Everything is really fine, he closed his eyes tiredly. I'll go back to the hospital and continue my practice there, and you don't shirk your work and don't terrorize Konohamaru too much. It's time for me to go. Yes, go ahead. Take care of yourself, and Sujetsu hung up. When my eyes stung with tears again, someone rang the doorbell at our apartment, and the housekeeper went to open it. A few minutes later she knocked on my door and said that a friend had arrived. I had friends at the academy, but as far as I knew, the only one who had my address was Sujetsu, not the red-haired guy standing on the landing in all black. For a moment, I thought it was Gaara, but the stranger had no tattoo on his face and his eyes were grayish-brown. Who are you? I asked in a steady voice, stepping out onto the stairwell and closing the door behind me. I'm here on behalf of Orochimaru. What? I was asked to tell you that you are expected tomorrow at 8 in the evening in the same place where everything happened. The young guy conveyed his order, coming up close to me and whispering all this in my ear. If you bring the tale or do not carry out the order, innocent people will suffer. Right, Urano Sora, or should we call you Uzumaki Naruto? Where from? Before I could finish speaking, Maria came out onto the landing. Aren't you coming in? The woman asked with a smile. Business doesn't wait. The young man answered her, moving away from me and winking at me. He went to the stairs. Is everything okay? They asked me. Of course. It couldn't be better. I answered as casually as I could, although everything inside me was shaking and my hands in my pockets were nervously clenching into fists. Maria nodded and disappeared into the apartment, and I continued to stand on the landing and think about what had just happened and how to get out of it now. Chapter 10 Commentary on Chapter 10. Happy New Year, everyone. Christmas tree party popper. As soon as I entered my room, I grabbed the phone. I really wanted to call. But who? Sasuke? Gaara? Sujetsu? No, I can't do that. I can't put those I care about in danger. The stranger had really excited me, and the mere mention of Orochimaru had brought back unpleasant memories. A slight shudder ran through my body and I threw the phone onto the bed. It was worth mentally preparing for tomorrow evening and at the same time getting a weapon. I remember I had a friend who sold weapons, but she should have called in advance and asked about the right model. It just so happened that in a private school we studied civil self-defense, learned to shoot and throw knives. I won't be able to bring a large arsenal of weapons into a brothel, but one pistol and a small knife are quite enough. So, in order not to waste precious time, I hurried to my friend.